filming with your smartphone. We all have cameras now in our pockets, and that's kind of the cool thing about it, is we all suddenly have this ability to document essentially everything that happens around us. And so now this creates a wonderful new opportunity to actually hold people accountable for their actions. This is great for, say, insurance reasons. This is great for legal reasons. That would be the big one. And it's great for recreational reasons too, because you can film your friend jumping off the roof with an umbrella, like we've all done. So an FBI probe now is going into the videotape death by cops as an ethics of posting footage is being questioned. Now, I have a little bit of a different view about ethics of posting videos, in that I think nothing is off limits, basically, when it comes to videos being posted. I mean, even if it's gory, whatever, documentation is important, and public knowledge is extremely important too. And trying to get something deleted or saying that it shouldn't be released simply because it's graphic is really kind of juvenile. And it's the same culture where people are just offended by things all the time. It's the same sort of idea where it's like, oh, it's too violent. Sensitive eyes might see this. It's like, well, that's real life. People actually die and get shot all the dang time, and it's nothing new. So documenting it is extremely important, because then you can see who may or may not be at fault. So documentation of events such as these is extremely important. And we had a incident that just occurred, but occurred maybe 2-3 days ago in Texas, surprise, surprise, where a man was shot, and he apparently had his hands up, according to a video that's been posted of it. And a Texas broadcaster's decision to publish a video of that incident is now having an FBI investigation raised. Now, there's people saying that, oh, well, it wasn't ethical to show the video of somebody getting shot. I would beg to differ, actually. This is a real news event, and people need to be informed. And if people aren't informed, then you're really not doing a very good job as a news broadcaster. So that being the case, to be informed properly about the situation, you kind of actually have to show things like these. And yeah, they can come up with a little warning at the beginning of it saying, this might be violent, or viewer discretion is advised, it's extremely graphic, what have you. But documentation like this is extraordinarily important, and being a wimp about it really is not a good idea. Now, there are differences where there might be, say, a family member who says, I don't want this to be released. That's a little bit different. But if we're talking about just plain old documentation, getting that info out there, yeah, the video should absolutely be out there. And people had a lot of differing opinions about that. And of course, that's fine. But one notable example was when, of course, we had what happened in Virginia, where there were the journalists who were shot. And I had mentioned that the video had not been released of that had been filmed, I should say, by the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, of course, of this crime, where the shooting of the two journalists and the one Chamber of Commerce woman who worked for the Chamber of Commerce. And I was sort of, I guess, a little bit lamenting the fact that the video hadn't been released so that we could properly see what actually went on. And somebody posted on the Hot News Talk Radio Facebook, and again, it's fine that you think this way. Again, I'm not bashing anyone for thinking a particular way, but somebody posted on the Hot News Talk Radio Facebook that the video shouldn't be released, and it should be sealed, and all these different things. And I would contest that, actually, because it's important for us, especially as journalists. It's important for us to understand what goes on, how this happened, how it went down. So saying that it should be sealed or not a matter of public record, that's going a little bit far. In fact, I'm very open when it comes to public records. And I'll put it this way. If I should happen to get shot, I want that video out there. I'm dead serious. If something happens to me and I get shot, or I'm in a car wreck or whatever, that I want that to be out there as a matter of public record, because that's just how it is. That's how it should be. And especially if it's someone else perpetrating an act against me, I want that to be out there so that there's video evidence of it and in public record. So to want that to be sealed sort of defeats the entire purpose of, say, free press, all these different ideas that are very, very American. A Texas broadcaster's decision, though, to publish a bystander video that captured Texas deputies shooting a man with his hands raised has prompted an FBI investigation into the death of 41-year-old San Antonio man whose killing has been viewed around the world now. Experienced civil rights investigators from the FBI will thoroughly review the facts and circumstances surrounding the shooting, the FBI said in a statement on Tuesday. Our focus is to determine whether a civil rights violation took place as a result of a deputy willfully engaging in the use of excessive or unjustified force. The Friday shooting, which was first published Monday by KSAT in San Antonio, has also prompted Bexar County officials in Texas to beef up the use of body and dash cams. Also, rather good things. The Bexar County deputies involved in the shooting were not wearing body cameras and are now on paid leave, of course. Clearly, the tensions across the nation are running hot between the public and the police. Lots of people do not trust the police anymore, and it kind of actually makes sense, really. I've never have trusted the police, and just as a matter of principle, because I do not trust anyone who works for government. I don't care if you are a dog catcher. I don't care if you're the president. I do not trust you if you work for government, just on principle. Now, that's if we're talking about public matters. On a personal level, I really don't care. But if we're talking about a professional level, I can't trust you if you work for government. That's simple as that. I'm even talking sometimes military, where I do not trust you if you work for government. There's no way around it. I just do not. And my mind will not be changed about that. I'm not going to trust anyone who works for government. And this includes, and in fact, especially includes sheriff's deputies, cops, police commissioners, police union reps, anything like that. Don't trust them. So the Friday shooting has prompted the police in Texas and the sheriff's office to beef up accountability, although not really accountability, but more filming. Clearly, tensions across the nation are now running hot, and a Harris County, Texas officer, Darren Goforth, was shot and killed for apparently no reason. We're not sure about the whole story. On Friday, while filling up his vehicle with gas in Houston, a suspect, Shannon Miles, is accused of capital murder and is now a defendant in that case. He's facing the death penalty. But are these police-public tensions caused by today's YouTube society, where both police and the public feel the need to film one another? There is sort of a tension there, almost like a Berlin Wall situation, where you have people on one side filming and people on the other side filming, and they never really get together and talk about anything. And sure, that could be seen or perceived as a bad thing. I can understand that. I don't know, it's a difficult situation, because on the one hand, I really don't trust cops. On the other hand, I don't really trust anybody. So it's kind of difficult, actually. No, but really when it comes down to it, the police in a fatal situation, generally speaking, have one thing in mind, and that's self-preservation. And if you're handing somebody a gun and expecting him to operate in a safe and reasonable manner, you really can't expect that, actually. That's the thing. You can't really expect anyone to operate rationally in a heated situation. It's just not going to happen. And it depends on personality types, too, because no amount of training is going to get your personality away. You can't train away a personality. So if somebody is bullish or a bully and hot-headed when they go into the police, the training is really only going to hone that. So we see situations where that happens as well. And of course, that's certainly a negative thing. So it's a fluid situation. It's really complex. You can't label it one way or the other, where all cops are bad or this cop acted in bad ways, thus all of them are. It's really a fluid situation. You have to take it case by case. And that's why I'm on the one hand, I really don't trust cops, but on the other hand, there's always benefit of a doubt, and there's fair reporting always. So it's a difficult situation for me, because I have personal biases, but I also have to report things in a fair way. So I don't know. There's actually been a rash of cop killings lately, although it is worth noting that on the net, like net-wise, police deaths have actually been on a steady decline for the last 30 years. So while we may be seeing a small spike now, on the broader scale, police deaths have actually been declining for the last 30 years, and they've been lower this year than they have been last year. So it's not nearly as bad as perhaps TV news would have you believe. It's certainly not great, but it's not as bad as they may have you believe. People have a perception that is sometimes incorrect, where, especially in the age of the internet, where anyone can tell anybody anything, and again, that's fine too, but when anyone can tell anyone anything, we sort of have an idea that things just are the way that they say they are. So like, if I get a bunch of people to say that there's been a bunch of gang shootings or there's a bunch of gang activity in Coolidge Park, whether or not that's true, people will start to believe it if enough people start saying it, whether or not it's true. It doesn't really matter if it's true or not at that point, because everyone saying it thus is perceived to be true. And even though Coolidge Park might be the safest place in the city, I don't know. You keep hearing about, oh, this is a dangerous place, but you don't really hear of anyone who's actually been there at this particular time. So it's kind of interesting, just using that as an example. And so we keep hearing about how there's a war on cops, there's a war on cops, there's a war on cops. And I'm not really seeing a whole bunch of real world evidence of that. Yeah, you see a ton of posts on Facebook and on Twitter, but when we're talking about real world, we've seen really just a choice few examples of that. You saw the thing with the Arby's where somebody refused to serve a cop. And I mean, again, that's an isolated situation where somebody who worked as a cashier, or actually in this case worked at the drive-thru, had a personal bias. That doesn't speak anything about Arby's. It doesn't say anything about management at Arby's. It's just something that happened. And it's, I don't know, it could be the same thing if it's a postal service worker who refused to give the mail to cops. You know, it's just, it's a business thing, and it's some individual with a personal bias. And I'm not currently aware of any Black Lives Matter link to that either, although it could come up, of course. There was always a possibility of that. So there's been a rash of cop killings lately, and there's been plenty of officer-involved shootings captured on film as well. As a testament to the tensions between police and the public, a Birmingham, Alabama police officer who was pistol whipped by an attacker last month was also virtually berated on social media with photos of the officer lying face down on the pavement. But again, that's social media for you. That's the internet. This sort of thing is not new. People act like people being mean on the internet is some sort of like somehow a new thing. It's really not. This is tame compared to what I've seen. And that's not because I'm some grizzled internet veteran by any means. It's just that's how it is. That's life online. And it's just, it's brutal and it's real and it's very just, it's visceral. And that's just how people react online. That's just how it is. There's not really any getting around that. People are going to be awful and mean and rude online, period. That's just the reality of it. So officers are second guessing every move because they're afraid that they're going to be judged by the media and the public. Birmingham Police Sergeant Heath Boackle, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, said. But see, there's two sides to that too, where on the one hand, that's kind of a good thing. And on the other hand, that's maybe a negative thing. I mean, yeah, every single action they take as an official should be scrutinized. That's the thing. Every single step you take, as long as you're wearing the uniform and the badge, should be scrutinized because you're acting as a public officer now. You're not a private individual when you're wearing that badge and the gun and the taser and the uniform and strutting around and driving around in your police cruiser. You're no longer a private individual at that point. You are now a public official and should be scrutinized by the public. So if they're afraid of their actions being scrutinized by everyone, perhaps their actions are actually wrong. You know, and it's not, it's sort of the reverse situation where it's, you have nothing to hide, right? You know, the classic question where the cop rolls down your window or you roll down your window and the cop says, hey, you don't mind if I search your car, do you? You don't have anything to hide. Well, now the counter argument is, well, you don't mind if I videotape you, right? You don't have anything to hide. It's sort of been flipped around on the cops now, and it's become very uncomfortable for the police, which on the one hand is kind of funny, but on the other hand, it makes the cops more on edge, which makes people more likely to get shot. So go figure. So regardless, the latest San Antonio episode leaves the question of whether the killing of Gilbert Flores in San Antonio would have been swept under the rug absent the video. And that's the point I was going to get to, is that had there not been a video of this incident happening in Texas where a man was shot with his hands up, and they claim they tried to use a taser. You know, I'm not passing judgment on either side of this at this point. I mean, it could be that the cops were, or I should say the sheriff's deputies were absolutely right. Or it could be that they were absolutely wrong. We don't know at this point. There's not been an internal review as of yet. They're on paid leave. You know, it's way too early to make a call on that. You know, don't place your bets yet. Although I already have $100 on them being wrong, but that's regardless of that situation. You know, it's not really relevant right now. But the fact of the matter is, had this not been filmed, this would be a non-issue almost. This would just be, you know, police shoot a man who they said had a knife in the front yard, and there's no video evidence of it, so nothing would happen. Same situation where the guy was shot in his car in, I believe it was Baltimore, although it could be wrong about that, where a man was shot in his car, and had it not been had it not been caught on video, this would be a non-issue. It would just be, he tried to reach for my gun and I shot him. And it turns out that's not true. But because it's on video, we now know that that is in fact not true. And people say all the time, well, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that. But does that warrant dying? Does freaking out and grabbing the door of your car mean you should die? That's not something that you should be executed for. And I hate that argument so much because people make it all the dang time where people say, well, he shouldn't have done that, he shouldn't have talked back. Well, yeah, but does talking back mean you should get shot? You know, people are overly emotional these days too. I don't know if it's these days, but people are just overly emotional in general. we like to apply emotions to all sorts of things which are really rational, and emotions really don't have any place being applied to a lot of these arguments where people say, well, he may have felt a certain way. I don't care how anyone feels. We're talking about the legal definition of, was this murder? Was he armed? These things matter. You know, this is an actual thing that actually matters. I don't care how the cop felt. I don't care how the person who was shot felt. That doesn't matter. What matters is, was he armed? Was there a situation where this or that was happening? There's all sorts of legal parameters that have to be filled out. We need to know these details. Fortunately, it's on video, so we can actually figure out these details. Was he carrying a knife like they claim? That actually matters. I don't care how anyone felt. Was he carrying a knife? That's something that actually matters. We don't know right now, by the way. The sheriff's deputies claim that the person in the front lawn who was shot with his hands up was carrying a knife. And again, I don't know if that's true or not. It could very well be, but we don't know yet. There's not been a complete investigation. Now, of course, there's always a problem where the investigation could be totally corrupt, and that's a whole nother problem. We'll get to that when it comes. But Bexar County Sheriff Susan Pamerlo was outraged that a Texas TV station paid $100 for the video and then published it, which prompted a media frenzy and threats against the officers. She said on Monday that it was unethical and sad, like she's somehow an expert on ethics, and that the station posted the unedited footage. Station KSAT said that it published it for viewers to make their own decision on whether to click on a link and see a video. Really, though, that is the ultimate thing, is it's unbiased. The video has no bias. The video is in a particular perspective. Yeah, maybe if you are facing the cops from the video, then things will be a little bit different, but videos don't lie. There is now video footage that's online of this incident happening. And how could that ever be a negative thing unless you're potentially guilty? There's video evidence of something happening. And now that there is video evidence, this is open for scrutiny. Videos should be posted. There should be people taking video. It's extremely important that people take videos. I don't see how anyone could ever be against the idea of citizens filming the police, because really it could only lead to positive things for the populace anyway. If they don't want to be filmed, they shouldn't be cops. That's the thing. If you're adverse to being filmed, you really just shouldn't be a cop in the first place if you don't want to be scrutinized. Because guess what? You got to fill out a ton of paperwork. You have to fill out all sorts of different affidavits. You have to do your job, right? And that includes being scrutinized all the dang time. So if you don't want the citizens to film this stuff, then you're really bad at your job, to be quite frank. If you don't want to be filmed, stop being a cop, because that's just part of the job. That's like being a county official and not wanting there to be meeting minutes. It's just what happens. If you don't want that to happen, you're bad at your job. That's like if I didn't want to work under the FCC jurisdiction. Well, guess what? If I said, hey, I don't need the FCC, I'd be bad at my job. Or if I said, I don't, my boss doesn't need to know what I do in work hours, I'd be bad at my job. I'd be fired immediately. The bosses of the cops is the populace. We are the bosses of the cops, and we have every right to film them when there's a reasonable expectation or no reasonable expectation of privacy. When we're talking about on public streets, we have a right to film them. This has been determined by the Supreme Court. It's constitutional. It's legal. It's right there. So them being, oh, please don't film me. Forget you, man. Of course we're going to film, because our lives might actually be in danger. We're talking about somebody who's carrying a gun and doesn't want to be filmed and is becoming aggressive at some point. This needs to be filmed. It's imperative. And that's not an anti-cop argument. That's a pro-scrutiny argument. That's a pro-accountability argument, because I'm actually, believe it or not very anti-cop. I happen to know one or two, and they're, decent guys. I wouldn't want to get on their bad side, but I mean, they're not like horrible or anything. I've been pulled over twice, and both of the people who pulled me over were quite nice, but I don't really need to qualify these statements, is the thing. It's simply saying this is not an anti-cop argument, because I would make the same exact argument about a Secret Service agent. I would make the same exact argument of an FBI agent or somebody who works for the Postal Service. You are now working for the people. You're not working for the government. You're working for the people. Oh, I'm a government worker. No, you're a people worker, because you're working for the people who pays your paychecks, believe it or not. These things are important to understand. And if we don't understand them, then we are totally lost. It's over. Of course, I tend to be of the opinion that it's actually too late and it is over and there's no saving it, but I'm extremely pessimistic is the thing. I'm incredibly pessimistic when it comes to the future. I'm of the opinion that the world should have just ended in 2012, actually. I wish it had. but unfortunately it didn't, and we still have to continue on. Oh, well, no, I'm kidding. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. It's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The digital revolution has also brought about an accountability revolution. That's a tough one, isn't it? Where we all have cameras now. We all have smartphones. They all have cameras. Use them. These are accountability tools. These are tools. These are almost weapons, really. But they're sort of weapons in almost a nonviolent way, where they can be used as tools to film things. And filming is totally neutral. There's no situation I can think of where filming would be a bad thing, unless, of course, we're talking about a private conversation or whatever exception that may be. But if we're talking about in public, you should film. You have a smartphone, use it.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. 1 week before the start of the NFL season, a victory for Tom Brady.
A federal judge has tossed out Brady's 4-game suspension. That means Brady will be on the field most likely when the Patriots take on the Steelers for the NFL season opener next week. Previous remarks by this judge had many courtroom observers thinking that he would be siding with Brady.
Fox's David Lee Miller. 1 Marine is dead, 11 hurt after a helicopter makes a hard landing at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
According to a statement from the Marine Corps, the helicopter was from the Marine Aircraft Group 29.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin. 2 Marines remain hospitalized in stable condition. And in the investigation into Malaysia Air Flight 370, which disappeared last year, French authorities now on the same page as Indonesian investigators, confirming the wing part which was discovered this summer is from that plane. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Continuing the trend of talking about Hillary Clinton, I don't know, man. The hacker thing is a little bit weird. This is Digital Drive. I'm Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more. And technology, when you think about it, is such a broad subject. Like everything is technology, really. When it comes right down to it, anything and everything is technology in some sense. I mean, I could talk about the stone wheel, and that's technology. I could talk about the horse and buggy, and that's technology. So it's sort of intentional. It's pseudo-intentional that the subject is technology because it could be anything. I can talk about whatever I want. It's all technology. I could be talking about my martial arts practice, and that would be technology because I use a car to get there or something. I'll find some way. I'm also really bad at martial arts, but go figure. Oh, well, I'm decent, but whatever. We don't need to get into my horrible martial arts practice anyway. So is the Hillary Clinton hacker for real? That's the question that should be asked. Now, it's funny that this is coming up actually because I sort of thought something like this would happen. Not to put me on a high horse, but I kind of thought this would happen. I guess just because I don't know what my analysis would be on that. I just sort of assumed something along these lines would happen. Just because we're talking about an unsecure email server here than an American could, I'm sure. Or, it's just, that's the internet, right? Russian hackers are some of the world's best. I'm sure they could get into it. And Chinese hackers could get into Clinton's email server, and American hackers could get into Clinton's email server. I mean, servers are not like uber secure anyway. So it's silly to me that people are thinking like, oh, well, her email will be fine. No, it's really not. It couldn't possibly be. RadarOnline.com may have been duped by an individual who is purporting to be a computer specialist who claims to have obtained 32,000 emails from Clinton's private email. That's kind of the funny thing is we don't actually have any proof that this hacker has anything. So people are saying that, oh, well, the Clinton email's been hacked. Well, can you prove that? I mean, do we know that? Has the hacker come out with any sort of conclusive proof that hey, look, this is some stuff I have? We haven't really seen that at all. If you remember back, and this is going to be an awful example, but if you remember back when there was the whole leak of the nude photos of celebrities, back when that happened, there was proof that was positive. Not proof as in we released them, but proof as in they came out with photos of folders that were kind of obviously different celebrities, and it was it wasn't a good thing, but there was at least proof there that this really did happen, as opposed to paying a ton of money for something that didn't actually exist, which has happened before, by the way. It's called ransomware, and we're actually going to be talking about that in a second too. But the website purports to exclusively reveal 6 subject lines from messages sent to Clinton and allegedly obtained by the computer specialist. The problem is subject lines are really easy to fake. I mean, I could write anything and say this is a subject line from a Clinton email, and all I'd have to do is write down hey, Hillary, what's up? Forward. It'd be so easy. Hey, Hillary, did you see this article that I saw on TechCrunch? It's easy to fake a subject line. So that doesn't really prove anything. I'm talking about conclusive proof. I want a photo of Clinton's password. I want a photo of her actual inbox in Outlook or whatever she used. I want to see that, and I'm not really. So it seems that Radar Online actually failed to conduct due diligence, including simple web searches on the subject lines in question. The website would have discovered that another hacker obtained and released those exact same subject lines, and that was more than 2 years ago. The computer specialist, who is seeking legitimacy, curiously gave RadarOnline.com 6 subject lines that happened to have all been released all the way back in March 2013, when a hacker using the alias Guccifer posted screen grabs from an AOL account of longtime Clinton confidant Sidney Blumenthal. Surprise, surprise. In fact, every email subject line allegedly obtained by the specialist, so-called, and posted on RadarOnline.com was actually posted 2 years ago as a screen grab by Gawker.com. So this email hacker thing is a little bit unlikely. We want it to be true, but it's kind of unlikely. And the stupid thing is, and I hate it when this happens, the stupid thing is, we're probably going to be seeing this on the TV, right? I mean, people are probably going to be posting or not posting, but reporting hacker may have gotten into Clinton's email. Notice the wording though, may have gotten. TV news is, I just do not like TV news the way it's done these days. It's awful. It's bad. I don't know why anyone wants to get into it. I'm talking cable, not local. Local's fine. But we're talking about cable TV news is really bad because it's 24 hours. How do you fill 24 hours when nothing happens half the time? You know, it's like, oh, well, we got to talk about like a bear that fell out of a tree. Here's the latest viral video you don't care about. Here's what Kim Kardashian's doing, and you don't care about that either. And we're going to talk about why you shouldn't care about that. Here's two people to talk about why you should or should not care about this particular topic. Also, breaking news, and they'll come in with breaking news, and the whole music jingle comes in, and is a breaking news now coming out of Clinton, where the breaking news now in the Clinton email scandal, where it appears that a hacker may have obtained the Clinton emails and is posting them to such-and-such.com and charging $500 for them. So you hear that headline and you think, oh wow, may have. So you think that it's true. You know, we'll just assume that that's true. But that's a very poor assumption. You know, TV news is generally designed to be sensationalist, and I hate sensationalist news because it just relies on emotion, and I hate using emotion for fact-based study. You know, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not an emotional guy anyway. Ask any of my exes. I'm not an emotional guy anyway. So it's just like, it drives me freaking nuts when I see stuff like that. I just want to rip my hair out, and I have a lot of it, so I can do that. I want to rip my hair out. It's just, man, TV news makes me mad, makes me made. TV news makes me made, man. It just drives me freaking nuts, and I want to just like break my TV every time I watch the news, but I don't know. So there's also news coming out about the situation that happened in Texas, where a man who was fatally shot by deputies may have had a knife. That's what the sheriff is claiming. So a man who was fatally shot by deputies last week near San Antonio appeared to have a knife in his hand. The Bexar County Sheriff, Susan Pomerleau, trying to get that right, said on Wednesday, citing a video that she saw of the incident that hasn't actually been released. Now, that's kind of the funny thing, is there is body cam, or there's not body cam, but there's apparently another video of what happened, and they're not wanting to release that. She added that the second video was longer and was taken from a different angle than the one shown on broadcaster KSA TV, or rather KSAT TV, which was then sent to criminal investigators and has not been released to the public. So we need that video. You know, public scrutiny is kind of important. If it's just internal review, I don't trust internal review. They're all part of the same dang organization. You got the Fraternal Order of Police investigating somebody who's a member of the Fraternal Order of Police. Like, I don't trust that. I'm given no reason to trust that thin blue line and all that. I don't trust it. I'm given zero reason to ever trust anything they ever say, other than like, well, they're public servants and yada, yada. Like, okay, great, but that doesn't give me any reason to trust anything they say. Like, well, you know, their job is to serve the public. Like, oh, okay, suddenly that means I should trust everything they say. It doesn't work that way. If we need accountability, then there should be a third-party review, not someone who's in the same agency reviewing somebody from the same agency. It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it does from their perspective, but from an actual legal or perhaps unbiased perspective, it really doesn't make any sense. So accountability has gone right out the window when it comes to any sort of review of any sort of police activity. It's just gone right out the window. There basically is no accountability anywhere anymore, unless we're talking about citizens, where a video is released and people view it, you know, regular non-robot people view it, robots being the cops, non-robot people view it, then, wow, maybe, you know, people can actually come to conclusions on their own and not trust the cops because there's no reason to. Well, thinking of things that make me steamed, Verizon just unveiled a new logo, and it's horrible again. Following its $4.4 billion acquisition of AOL, oh boy, Verizon unveiled a new logo, according to Advertising Age and The Verge. Because Google is not the only company which can revamp itself and come out with another terrible logo. The old logo was kind of cool, actually. It was I don't like Verizon that much, but it was the Verizon logo. I mean, we all know the Verizon logo. It's got the Z that goes underneath the O and the N, and it's red, and it's iconic, and it's cool. It's just cool. The new logo is not. It's bad. It's simplistic. It's flat. No gradients. It's just simple, flat, boring. And that seems to be the trend now for new logos, is simple, flat, boring. The new design drastically de-emphasizes Verizon's signature red checkmark, like the one thing that made your logo distinctive, moving it over to the right beside the N. The red Z, or Z for our American friends, the Z for our Canadian friends. The red Z in the name is also gone. stupidly enough, and the entire logo is now a simpler, straighter Helvetica. Now, I like Helvetica. I'm not going to lie. I actually like Helvetica. It's a cool font. But like, it's being overused now in logos. Like, really, you're going to use Helvetica in your logo? It's like, I'll just use Times New Roman in my logo. I'll just use Comic Sans on my logo. Oh, is that Arial? That'll be in my logo. Like, wow, so much for distinctiveness, right? We'll just throw that one right out the window. According to Advertising Age, the company launched a change internally today, and Verizon has now confirmed it. So the new logo is awful, terrible, boring Helvetica. It's not distinctive at all, and I'm going to forget what it looks like tomorrow. So really, Verizon should stop with that flat nonsense. We keep wanting to go simplistic, and it's really boring. Now, I know why they're doing it. See, this is something that I was reading about on a particular image board the other day. I know why they're doing it. Because it's easier internationally to see logos like that and just read it straight out phonetically. It's easier. Using a simplistic font is just easier. But the problem is it's not really distinctive. I could not know how to read, and I don't. I could not know how to read, and I could still recognize the Verizon logo because it's just so iconic. You know, it's the Verizon logo. It's like if AT&T changed its logo to just Helvetica, all caps, ATT, with no ampersand, because ampersands are serif and we don't do that. You know, like, why would you ever do that? I just, like, some things make me mad that shouldn't, and this is one of them, and it makes me unreasonably upset. Well, another thing that makes me unreasonably upset is the FCC, actually, not really when it comes to radio. I don't really care what the FCC does when it comes down to radio, but for more than a decade, consumers have been downloading and installing open source firmware packages for various popular routers, notably that Linksys Cisco one from the mid-2000s, the purple-blue one that everyone has. I think we have one around here too. I can never remember it's like the WR4GT or something like that. I can never remember the model number, but everyone has that router. And it was popular because you could flash the firmware to make it custom. Basically, it's like you could customize how do I explain? You could customize basically the interface for the router when you're trying to do stuff in it. It just made it cooler. Well, users may now flash open source firmware for any number of reasons. Sometimes a router has a previously unknown bug or security flaw that the manufacturer forgets to fix. So you can fix it yourself by installing open source firmware. And the cool thing about open source firmware too is it being open source, meaning that the source code is everywhere. It means then that anyone can access that source code and adjust it to their liking, to upload it and to use it however they wish. So it's open. There's no security bugs that can be perceived. There's not any risk of NSA backdoors being put in by the manufacturer. It's just better. Well, the FCC's new proposed rules governing software requirements for U-NII, or Unlicensed National Information Infrastructure 5 gigahertz band, however, could actually end those options altogether. Reason being, in a recent revision to its rules governing the 5 gigahertz spectrum, the FCC actually ordered that a 5 gigahertz device be secured to prevent its modification to ensure that the device operates as authorized, thus reducing the potential for harmful interference to authorized users. The document goes on to note that applicants must demonstrate that only authenticated software is loaded and operating on the device, and that the device is not easily modified to operate with RF parameters outside of authorization, meaning that there can now be no customization of these routers if the FCC gets its way. The flaw in the FCC reasoning is thinking that the ability to modify the modem settings in a manner which may cause limited short-range interference is that it really matters at all, because it doesn't. That's the primary. They're arguing that would be the primary goal of modders, and that's really not. Because why would you want to ruin your own router? You know, because this firmware is designed for the user. So why would you want to ruin your own thing? It doesn't really make any sense. The more wireless settings or better administrative options is usually what we want to get into when we're talking about firmware. So the FCC's proposed rules need to be changed to accommodate valid users, they say. So the FCC is yet again not understanding new technology, which is not surprising. And for some odd reason, they're trying to change how routers work. Now, I don't know if they're trying to change how routers work, but we're seeing a trend where the FCC is quickly becoming kind of irrelevant, actually, because companies are actually governing themselves, kind of interestingly enough. Like, wow, maybe there's actually an idea where like a foundation can be formed that governs standards instead of an FCC. Astounding, I know. So the FCC is quickly becoming kind of irrelevant, actually, and that being the case, We're seeing a lot of examples of the FCC trying to make itself relevant. We're going like, well, maybe we can just do this and this and this, and people will take us seriously again. But the fact of the matter is no one's ever going to take them seriously, ever. Well, Android ransomware is using XMPP chat to call home, claiming that it's the NSA. Oh boy. Okay, so what's happening here is, in case you don't know what's going on, ransomware is it's a virus that what happens is with this virus is it takes control of your machine and locks it up and it puts it under ransom. So it demands that you pay money in order to get your stuff back again. And whether or not you actually do is up for debate. The really popular one was the MoneyPack ransomware, which demanded that you pay a bunch of money to MoneyPack account in order to get your files back, and it would unlock your computer after that. The only fix usually is just a format and reinstall of the OS, which is not fun, but that's just what you got to do. Well, unfortunately, that sort of attack is now hitting Android phones. There's a new variant of mobile ransomware that encrypts the content of Android smartphones, and it's putting a new spin on both how it communicates with its masters and how it spurs its victims into action. The updated version of SimpLocker masquerades on app stores and downloads pages as legitimate applications, and uses an open instant messaging protocol to connect to command and control servers. So the malware requests administrative permissions to sync its hooks deep into Android. Once it's installed, it announces itself to some victims by telling them that it was planted by the NSA and that to get their files back, they'll have to pay a fine. Now, people who aren't so tech savvy or don't know about the administrative or bureaucratic process of the NSA will think that that's actually legit and will send their money to this account, when really that's a bad idea, because why would the NSA demand a fine? They would send it to you in a letter, if anything. That's the thing, is you're not going to be billed by any sort of official agency by phone. They're going to send you a letter, because a letter, especially if it's certified mail, you can affirm that it's been received. It's just they're going to send you snail mail. That's just how it is. They're not going to call you on the phone. They're not going to lock your phone like that. If the cops want to get at you, or if a federal agency wants to get at you, it's going to use a legitimate method, probably a governmental method, such as the United States Postal Service. You're not going to get your phone locked by the NSA, most likely anyway. Offer Caspi of Checkpoint's malware research team wrote in a report posted this week that the team has evidence that users have already paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their files unencrypted by this new variant. He estimates that the number of infected devices so far is actually in the tens of thousands, but maybe much higher, because the software can't actually easily be removed once it's installed, and because the files it encrypts cannot be recovered without it. Victims have no choice but to either pay $500 to get their files decrypted or wipe the device and start from scratch, which actually with Android is not really that painful. All you have to do is flash a new ROM, and it's not really that bad. I mean, seriously, it's really not that bad to just reinstall Android on your smartphone. It's not horrible. So that would be an option. Call up your tech-savvy nephew and try to get that done, because that's probably your best option if something like this has happened. While it's posing as a legal or governmental authority to intimidate the victim, that's not a new idea. In fact, it's kind of an old idea. The use of extensible messaging and presence protocol, or XMPP, the instant messaging protocol used by Jabber and previously Gtalk, is a shift in tactics to evade detection by anti-malware tools. XMPP communication actually makes it more difficult for security and anti-malware tools to catch the ransomware before it can communicate with its command and control network, because it conceals the communication in a form that actually looks like normal instant messaging communications. And that's where things start to get kind of disturbing, because if you analyze your network and try to find where this is coming from, all you're seeing is just a regular chat protocol running, and you might think that it's even yours. So it's frightening, to say the least. Well, there is good news, though, not regarding that. There is no good news regarding that. There is good news, though, talking about upgrading your home theater system, which I don't have because I just watch everything on my computer. But Samsung has actually unveiled the world's first 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray disc player. Now, this is extremely important, actually. You might not think so, but this is extremely important because so far we haven't actually had a very good delivery method for 4K. The problem is, and I'll explain 4K real briefly. 4K is a new resolution. It's actually a new standard, and it's meant to be the successor to 1080p HD. The resolution of 4K is actually 3840 by 2160 as opposed to 1920 by 1080 for 1080p. So it's roughly double the size of 1080p. So huge resolution change. I mean, you notice the difference. People say, oh, you can't tell the difference. No, you can tell the difference. It's not as subtle as 720 to 1080. I mean, there's a huge image differential when we're talking about 4K video. And in actuality, I've heard before that 1080p upscaled to 4K actually looks really good too, so go figure. But Samsung has now debuted the world's first ultra high definition Blu-ray player at IFA, the catchily titled UBS K8500, sporting a curved design to go along with the company's many curved TVs. This new model promises to play back movies at 4 times the resolution of Blu-ray discs and with a color palette that's actually 64 times larger than Samsung's, or rather than 1080p, I should say. Samsung's new Ultra HD Blu-ray player will also support the new high dynamic range standard via its HDMI 2.0A port. Samsung did not actually reveal the exact pricing or availability, only saying that it would be less than $500 when it launches in the US and Europe. So that's a pretty good price for a brand new media standard. Consider back when DVD came out, and those were really dang expensive. And remember when Blu-ray came out, those players were really expensive when Blu-ray players came out. Think about 1080p TVs. Oh my gosh. When 1080p TVs first came out, I'm talking late 90s, they were so expensive. They were really expensive. I'm talking hugely expensive. And there was no way really to view HD content on them. And I don't think HDMI was even a standard until later on. So there was no over-the-air HD programming either. So you were just wrecked if you wanted to actually watch 1080p content on your 1080p TV. There was no content for it. And we're sort of seeing that with 4K now, where there's no content for 4K when it comes to, like, the movies. I've not seen, anyway, a 4K release of a film yet. So there's no hope yet for watching a 4K film on your TV. It just isn't going to happen until a standard comes out to actually put this on physical media and watch. I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. And now we have it. It's this new Ultra HD Blu-ray. So there is hope yet for 4K watching in our home theaters. If you already have a 4K TV, all you have to do is spend $500 more and then $20 probably each for a new movie. So it's not terrible. If you have the money to drop on a 4K TV anyway, then you pretty much are fine. But that's the update on their home theater systems. I'm still waiting on a 4K monitor, to be quite honest, for my machine. But anyway, this is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Clutch with Keon Rose is up next here on Hot News Talk Radio. He's talking about sports. He's our resident sports expert here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, where we are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. And Clutch with Keon Rose is up next right here. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and of course, hotnewstalkradio.com.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.